My name's Emile and I run a national kids basketball franchise with 23 locations across Australia. And last term alone, we had over 2,800 kids participate in our programs. But it's not all roses. Sometimes a franchisee hits a rough patch, enrollments dip, life changes or momentum slows. Most franchise brands don't like talking about this stuff, but it happens. And I'm going to tell you exactly how we handle it. By the end of this video, you'll clearly understand what actually happens when a franchise starts struggling and how support really works behind the scenes. I'll walk you through a real story, then break down our structured recovery process step by step so you understand the system we use to get franchisees back on track. Let's get into it. So I'll give you a real story. We had one of our franchisees that was running multi-unit locations, so 3 locations. He was doing awesome. 300 enrollments, was killer, was becoming a high-performing franchisee. Now that individual had a change in life or a change in circumstances, and as a result, their area slowly started to decline. Their enrollments were declining, coaches were leaving, and there were starting to become problems with the area. So what we had to do is come in and offer a support plan and an action plan to get them back on track. But in franchise networks, it's very common that sometimes a franchisee will struggle, is failing, or isn't performing well. And in this video, I'm going to cover exactly what we do and what our step-by-step recovery plan is. And another example, yesterday, one of our franchisees, his name was Sarab, I got a message from him. He said, "Hey, Emile, I'm launching at my grand opening location in Lane Cove, but my enrollments, I'm only on 23 enrollments. I was expecting more. I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think?" And I jumped on a phone call and worked out a plan. But sometimes it all doesn't go according to plan. And we're going to break down exactly what we do as a franchise network to get a franchisee back on track. Let's get into it. Okay, step number 1, and this is the most important step. If you are struggling, if your franchise is failing, or if it's not going according to plan, reach out to head office early. Reach out to your field support officer as early as possible. Unfortunately, what happens when a franchisee is struggling, and we notice this in our network, is they go rogue, right? They go quiet. We don't hear from them. They don't reach out to support. It's actually us having to reach out for support. And I don't know if it's an ego thing or maybe things will turn, but the quicker you can address the problem, the quicker you can come up with a game plan to fix whatever it is whatever the problem you have. But you have to reach out to head office support really early. Call them up. We got Greg, our operations manager. "Greg, my business isn't doing well. The last 3 months, my enrollment's dipped, Can we book in a coaching call?" And in most franchise network, there is support and help. That's why you invest into a franchise. Right? You need that help and support. So step number 1, reach and ask for support as quick as possible. Don't delay on this. Okay, point number 2, once you've reached for support, now you need to create a clear recovery plan. What do I mean by that? So with us, if a franchisee is struggling or not performing well, they book in a coaching call with Greg, and together with Greg and the franchisee, they will come up with a game plan of how they're going to turn the business around. Now, what we like to focus on is one constraint at a time. Running a business, you can focus on a million different things in our industry. Oh, I want to do marketing. I want to go schools. I want to go daycares. I want to find a new venue. For us, we want to solve one constraint at a time. And the constraint that we want to focus on is the biggest constraint in the business because that's going to give us the highest return on investment. So when Greg does his coaching call, the constraint might be, I need to find a new venue to expand my enrollments because my current venue has too much limitations. I can't get any more court hire fee. That might be a constraint. Another constraint might be, Greg or Emile, I can't expand my business because I don't have any coaches. My coaches aren't free on Saturday, so I can't run weekend classes. As a result, my enrollments are limited because of this. Another constraint might be my enrollments are low. I need to boost my enrollments up. And what a solution we might offer is, all right, let's take out a local area marketing campaign. Let's run some local Facebook ads or some local Instagram ads. But what we do is we create a plan during that coaching call to figure out what is the constraint that's holding you back. What's the number 1 constraint, right? Because there's, entrepreneur ADHD, you can focus on 10 different things. What's the number 1 constraint that's holding you back? And let's come up with a plan on how we're going to fix that constraint. Let's move over to the 3rd point. Hey, just quickly, if you want to see if a Little Boomers basketball franchise is the right fit for you, book a discovery call with me and I'd love to have a chat. Okay, so point number 3 is weekly check-ins from head office to hold you accountable. So by now, you've reached out to head office for support. Your field support officer or your operations manager has come up with a plan. They've figured out what your constraint is and they come up with a plan. The third thing is you, the franchisee, got to do work. You got to get to work, right? So what happens is, let's say for example, one of your constraints is your enrollments are low. Okay, so you come up with a plan and say, we're going to target all the primary schools, 20 primary schools around your venue to do a flyer delivery to really get the word out to gain enrollments. Now, you, the franchisee, got a plan and got to do the work, and your coach or your operations manager or your field support officer will check in with you every week to hold you accountable to see how you're going. But at the end of the day, action speaks for themselves. If you've come up with a constraint and you've got a plan, now you've got to work that plan. And a good franchise system holds franchisees accountable to what they said they were going to do. And then hopefully you start to get results over time once you're working the plan. So number 3 is weekly check-ins and accountability. Let's move over to the 4th point. Okay, the 4th point is just a reminder as a franchisee to separate personal problems from the business, because a lot of times in a franchise network, if the franchisee isn't succeeding in terms of revenue, profit, enrollments, whatever it might be, sometimes the franchisee can get really debunked and upset about that. And they can say, you know what, I must be a bad franchisee or a bad operator, or I don't know business, or I'm not good. And I've seen this time and time again. It's very important that you separate the two. Just because your franchise isn't operating to where you want it to be, doesn't make you a bad operator. It just might mean you have the wrong blueprint, the wrong plan, the wrong strategy. Or maybe you just dropped the ball and you thought, you had a really good quarter and you thought that it was just going to drag over to the next quarter, and then all of a sudden it's soccer season, right? We get that a lot. Term 1 is soccer season. Term 4 is very high for us in terms of enrollments, being in indoor sports. And in term 1, a lot of parents try soccer. So maybe you didn't anticipate that 20 or 30% of your members weren't coming back because they had soccer season. So in the future, you can create a plan to combat that drop-off. But just remember, if your business isn't doing well, just don't let it affect you personally and be a reflection of you. Let's move over to the next point. So point number 5, worst case scenario, if for whatever reason, the business just isn't working for you. You've tried, and it's not working. And you've not given up, but you're interested in moving to the next phase in your life. And that does happen sometimes in our franchise network. You then begin what's called the selling procedure for selling the franchise. And it's quite a simple procedure for us in our network. Every franchise is a bit different, but the general gist is the same. The first component is the franchisor, us. We get the first right to buy the business back from you if we want. So you'll get the business evaluated by an accountant that shows financials, and then you'll get a sales price based on those financials, and you'll propose that to the franchisor. Would you like to buy our business for 60, 70K, whatever it is, here are the financials. The franchisor says, yeah, sure, we'd like to buy it back. Then they buy it back and there's a clear sale of business. If they choose not to buy the business back, then that's when you, the franchisee, has to go and find a buyer, right? It can be through a broker, it can be through your network. It's your responsibility to find the buyer, and then you propose the buyer to the franchisor. And if they meet their recruitment, if they meet their qualifications, then the sale can happen. But you just can't, and this is where some people get confused. Oh, I've got this buyer. Here you go. Can I go buy? Well, no, hold on. If it's a good franchise brand, they've got selection criteria, filtering procedures. They have to meet all the qualifications and all the criteria for a successful franchisee. And if they don't, then the franchisor can reject that buyer. Obviously, if they give reason, then they don't just say, yeah, no, not interested. They've got to give a reason of why they're rejecting the buyer. And we had that before. Franchisee was selling their business. They proposed the buyer to us. We met up with the buyer. We met up with his wife. We had a meeting, and we didn't feel like they will make a good fit for our brand. And we had to part ways, and they were upset. Both were upset. The franchisee that was here and the one that was leaving, they were upset. But that's what a good brand does. It's got to keep the brand strong. It's got to make sure they're bringing the right franchisees on board, and they're not bringing anyone on board, like any random person. But that's it, team. That's what happens in our network when a franchise is struggling, failing, or not meeting demands or not meeting where they want to be in terms of revenue and profit. Every franchise brand is different, right? Some ghost you. You got to make sure that you do your research on the brand. Some might ghost you, but in us, what we do is we do a coaching call. So we let us know ASAP, let head office or let your support officer know ASAP, book in a coaching call, come up with a plan to unlock the constraint, work the plan. That's when we, head office, hold you accountable. And if worst case scenario worse, then you go in to sell the franchise, and those were the steps that are involved. Hope you enjoyed that breakdown, team. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.